I'm just going to quickly show you, I guess, a distilled version of the proposal. And it's going to work. Let's see. Gosh, that's confusing. There it is. Can you all see that online, the Stewardship Upgrade slide? Cool. All right, so yeah, I wanted to just give the plotted summary of the proposal and take just clarifying questions just to make sure we're all working from the same template before we actually get into the discussion of the guts of it. So this is what's happening now. We've got the top diagram is the buddy system. So at the moment, any member can invite a new contributor in, and then they the new contributor is assigned a buddy, and there's like about a dozen buddies that have volunteered to take on this buddy role. But there's no real relationship between the member and the contributor and the buddy. The buddy and the new contributor are kind of random. It's like this random assignment, which is delivering patchy results. The other part of now is that we've got catalysts, and each of the catalysts is stewarded by 3 members. And we've also got ventures that are stewarded by 3 people, and at least 2 of them have to be members, at least one of them has to be external to the venture, and at least one of them has to be internal to the venture. So that's the state of our current agreements. And they're all, they're okay, they're marginally successful, but there's room for improvement. And so in reflecting on how this has been operating so far, both in the general catalyst work, but also specifically at the retreat, we thought of some improvements we'd like to propose. I guess that's the other context is from the catalyst perspective, and this is just, this hasn't gone through any kind of formal process, but this is a snapshot of thinking. What are the sort of top line problems around the network at the moment that we think are going to be most, not only just most critical, but also have the most leverage effect if we solve them. So it's just really common that people are having a poor arrival experience when they turn up. We talked about the wasteland of engagement. Like you turn up and someone's gone like, oh, you're cool, you're inspiring, you should come here. But then they're just sort of languishing in this digital space without knowing where to chip in. And the second point, people don't really know how to help each other. We're all trying to do experimental stuff, but it's not often easy to know where to put your energy in if you don't have all the context. We talked a lot at the retreat. It was really useful, just people sharing hunches and concerns and near misses. So like, hey, I'm concerned about what's going on in this venture, and then what do you know about it? And starting to combine our information. Like, oh, right, there's actually an issue here that we can we should step in and help with. Or at the moment, that's all happening through gossip, and there's not actually a system in place to handle it safely. Also, we don't have a conflict resolution process. So right now, I know that there's some people in the network that have a beef with me, and so we just avoid each other. And that just doesn't seem like a sustainable system. It seems like a way that, I'll keep being busy and trying to contribute, and they'll either take me on in public at some point, or else they'll drift off, and it just seems dumb. And I know that I'm one of probably dozens of people that are in a similar position. So I don't think we should be allowed to hide too much from our conflicts. And also there's a real lack of clarity about how a contributor becomes a member, because that's quite an opaque thing, because it happens inside the membership circle, and then the contributors get pulled into it when they meet some kind of imaginary criteria. So that's a cause for concern too, because it creates this, at very least, the impression of a hidden hierarchy, and probably the practice of it too. So these are some of the issues that we've been hearing as catalysts talking to everyone, and we're hoping that this, what we got excited about at the retreat really was, and this is the retreat participants, we got excited about a proposal that's a structural shift that's relatively small, like it's enough to get it through without too much drama, I hope. But we think it's going to address all of those issues all at once. That's the hope. And where it's come from, I guess one of the things that happened at this retreat for me was tightening up our language. So stewardship is this broad general concept about supporting people without resorting to coercion or bribery. Like we talked about having an influence on an outcome without having control over it, that sort of thing. It's a peculiar and fuzzy kind of concept, but we want to get really precise about what a steward is, and actually have a tight definition so everyone knows, I'm being a steward right now, and this is what's expected of me. At the moment, I think the way that we've defined stewardship within the agreements leads to like quite a lot of confusion about what it is. If you can have 3 of them, what does it mean? If you can have someone, if I'm a steward of Lumia, what does that mean? Like I'm inside Lumia, so I was already doing Lumia work. So yeah, that's a little bit unclear. So we're proposing to shift the definition a bit and tighten it up. And this is being informed by, it's not totally the same as, but being informed by the stewardship system, which was worked within Lumia. So in the very early days of Lumia, when we were forming, we had the benefit of Vivian Maderborn on our team, who's got huge experience with both with large corporate structures, but also with activism. And so she was in the right place to deliver a proposal to us, which was, hey, we should do this peer-to-peer support system. So she got that installed with Lumia, and I would credit it as one of the most important. It's like one of maybe 3 or 4 pillars that have led to the resilience of us as a community. And the bullet points of what our stewards do is, so each of us members, so there's, at the moment we've got 10 members and 2 new contributors, so all of the members are stewarding someone, and everyone has a steward. And the steward is the person that looks after your relationship with the group. So there's lots of issues where you can't go to a group about. And so it's having that one point of contact that you can talk with. And we have a system where it's not like strictly enforced, but we have a regular check-in cycle, usually about once a month, where it's just like you go and spend an hour with your steward and you talk about whatever it is that you need from that relationship at that time. The definition or the scope of the role is actually co-designed between the 2 parties. Critically, your steward is the person that will support you through a conflict. So if me and Rob have an issue with each other, well, firstly we'll try and just communicate directly. But if for whatever reason that feels unsafe or unproductive, we'll call in at least one of the stewards. So Rob might say, hey, I need Michael to support me through this one, and Michael will host the conversation, which immediately just shifts the tone of the conversation. We start to communicate a lot more productively rather than trying to score points off each other. And then if that doesn't work, then we've got a system for escalating it. So I can talk a little bit more about that later. The other thing about it is the reverse side of that is the steward is a great place for people to take concerns. So if I've got a concern about Rob's behaviour, but I don't want to take it directly to him, I can take it to the steward and say, look, I've seen this. Can you give me more context and relieve my concern, or can you make sure that this is going to get resolved somehow? The other I guess point we've noticed from this, because these relationships, they're quite deep, you know, it's very peculiar. It's like 1 hour a month, but you're actually going to the real heart of the matter. And so we tend to keep the relationships fairly stable over time. So often it'll take that you'll be in the same relationship for at least a year or so, or sometimes more. But they do move over time as well. So over the last 4 years, I think I've had maybe 3 or 4 different stewards. And so in effect, this becomes a self-improving system because my way of stewarding is different from Rob's and is different from Chelsea's, and so we actually learn particular skills. So one thing that Chelsea does is every time she'd check in with me, she'd say, what do you want me to remind you of in a month when I next see you? And it was just like a really awesome technique which helped me, you know, think about the future and feel supported and that sort of thing. And so that's a technique that I use now when I'm stewarding because I picked it up with her. And so we're all developing our skills of how to be an effective support person, which is choice. So this diagram on the right here is the proposed new version for Inspiral. The M's are members, the C's are contributors, and the V are ventures. So, like I said at the start, at the moment, ventures have 3 stewards and catalysts have 3 stewards. What we're saying is, let's shift it so each venture is stewarded by exactly 1 member, and that member is external to the venture. Let's have each member steward each other, so they're in that mutual support. The mutual support, which was designed into the idea of having 3 stewards. Let's actually just make it, you're only stewarding one thing, but you've also got a community of people around you. Looking at the new contributors, we're saying when I, as a member, want to add a new contributor, it's up to me to be their steward unless I find someone else to do it. So instead of just randomly throwing them into the middle, I'm actually going to make sure that they are well hosted and they've got someone who's consciously looking after them. And we're proposing that we need to invent a new thing called the steward matchmaker, who's someone who's basically going to keep the list and match offers and requests, because this actually is complex, trying to get these relationships, because people go away, people go and leave, and so on and so on. So that it actually takes a bit of effort to make sure that the people that want stewards have them. And the other critical piece of this work is that we agree the first draft of the conflict resolution process, which we haven't had, and that the stewards play a real critical component of. I drew up a real rough sketch of what a conflict resolution process might look like. This might be a little piece of work that someone could lead alongside. It doesn't have to be from me and Babs and Susan. But the proposal here is that we copy the Lumio model, which is, first you have a one-on-one conversation. Secondly, you bring in your stewards if you need support. Thirdly, there's some kind of working group that's nominated because they have specific skills in mediation and conflict resolution. So it's like, our stewards can't handle it, let's go to the pros. And then fourthly, if they can't handle it, then we go and we get an external person that is like a neutral party that is experienced in the thing. And finally, if that doesn't work, that's when you trigger a system review and you say, look, there's something wrong here, we need to change our agreement as well. So that's like a rough draft, and it'd be great for someone to pick that up and shepherd it through to a conclusion. So the plan for how we're imagining this thing rolling out is we're in the deliberation phase. We had this great session at the retreat that's got distilled into 2 blog posts and a Lumio thread. There's been some really good engagement in that already, and people raising very specific concerns, which Babs is going to talk through. And then there's this session to get more people more engaged with what's going on, and then we'll feed what we've done here, we'll feed that back into the thread, and hoping to get a temperature check out next weekend, maybe next Friday or something like that. And the temperature check will just say, it's the check that people agree with the direction, not the detail. And then if people agree with the detail, then we'll actually get into the work of, if they agree with the principle, then we'll get into the work of drafting up the detail. So pulling together which specific words are going to change in which specific agreements. And then after that's all agreed, which all going well will be maybe 2 or 3 weeks away, then it's this sort of like combo job between the catalysts, the ops, and this new matchmaker person who Catalyst will find the first one to start the rollout. And we're, for now at least, penciled in, let's try and get the first suite of stewards all in place by the end of the year. We do a regular member check-in process every 6 months, and we've just had one. So if we could set that as our target, is that at the next 6 monthly check-in we have all the member stewards in place. We think that'll go goodly.